So he bought bottling factories. He bought ice making plants. He bought timberland, coal mines, refrigeration companies. He bought railways. He bought a diesel company. He understood every part of that process.
Inspired by the adventures of our nurses, therapists, and techs, A Beer with Atlas is the only healthcare traveling, craft beer drinking podcast. Each week, we'll open a few beers, talk about the brewery and the style of beer, and then dive into some research curated specifically for each episode. In the end, we hope each one sounds like a conversation you'd have with your friends while enjoying a few cold ones.
Welcome to Mainstream May and another episode of A Beer with Atlas. I'm Rich.
I'm Brian.
I'm Dolan.
I wasn't excited for this in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't. But we have never done this beer. Arguably self-proclaimed the king of beers,
It says it right on the label.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they got a crown on the cap, for God's
Yep.
sake. Budweiser, the king of beers.
Yeah, Budweiser.
So, twist off.
That's weird. First of all, twist off.
Right.
I'm not used to that.
Okay, here's in the beginning. I wasn't excited, and like I told you guys before we started doing this, I had 4 pages of research before I realized this is way too much.
Yeah.
There is so much history with Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch that I think, again, like I do every single time, I fall in love with the story.
Well, I mean, it's been around since 1876. Most of the places we talk about were like 2016.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I guess there's
Yeah.
going to be some history.
This brewery
there.
started in 2015, and they did the first hazy IPA or whatever.
Yep.
Nope, not at all. This is, I mean, it. I hate the town. I hate the beer. But you cannot deny what this beer means to American beer history and what only Augustus, was it Augustus?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. It's, where is it? Here we go. Adolphus Busch.
Yeah.
Adolphus Busch, and then before him, his father-in-law, Eberhard Anheuser.
Ooh.
I've got a whole ton of research on this.
Wow,
Holy
wow.
cow. What they did for American beer and American brewing. So,
Yeah, because it was, I mean, before these guys, probably, it was very regional. Like your town had a brewery.
Yes.
You know, like Omaha had a few
yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah.
And then this is one of those that showed up all the way across the country.
So if you've never had a Budweiser before,
I don't know how that's possible.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It's like if you've never heard Johnny Cash before,
Right.
right? I mean, it's one of those things. It instantly it smells sweet.
Yep.
It's the taste is very exactly what you would expect.
Yeah. This one, the last episode we did, which was Cinco de Mayo, I think, talked about how there was corn, right?
Yep. Yes.
This is one of the things I first remember hearing that was rice. It was
Rice.
a rice beer, like
Yep.
a Japanese beer or something. And I was like, oh, that gives you a hangover. That's what I was always told.
Interesting.
Rice will give you a hangover. Budweiser. I'm going to go for it. It's a lager.
crisp. It's crisp. It's a lager. It's blind taste test. You don't tell me what this is. I'd be like, I'd order this lager.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never liked this. Even
Really?
in college, yeah, I always had a hard time.
I guess are you not a lager fan?
It's just the weird. I don't know. I don't like it. It always tastes like I don't want to say it, but cat piss kind of.
Shots fired. See, this is the kind of stuff Rich and I grew up stealing from the fridge.
Yes.
There was no other choice.
Yes.
But this was never in my house because this was expensive.
Oh.
My dad was not buying Budweiser. He might have bought Bud Light if it was on sale.
Okay.
We're going Keystone
Yes.
or Busch Light,
Yep.
you know?
Oh, my dad was a Michelob guy
Yeah.
on payday. But
Yep.
then otherwise, he's Ham, Schlitz,
Oh yeah. Maybe Olympia back in the day.
Olympia, yeah.
Yeah, they don't make that no more.
Hams, I
Unfortunately,
guess. Hams.
Hams is still good. PBR, whatever.
I see,
PBR.
and that might be my thing. Like I
Yeah.
am straight to the PBR all the time.
Yeah.
So
Hey, they won the blue ribbon.
One time. I actually still, on my beer fridge, I have 2 PBR blue ribbon magnets from my dad that we had it on as growing up, like that. I'd bring home artwork from like, middle school or from elementary school, and he would use the PBR magnet to put it on the fridge.
Nice. You're like
Right?
first place.
Yeah.
Right away, because I don't hardly ever have this in my house.
No.
Like maybe a 6-pack a year, and that's for people that come over maybe before this pandemic.
Sure.
So I never really read the label. But right on the side it says, brewed with 100% renewable electricity from wind power. I don't know if that's new,
I think that's new.
but I never knew that before.
Nope.
That's a huge brewery. I mean, we're talking every state has like at least distribution center,
Right.
probably.
Yes.
I mean, how many? Is there like 13 places they brew it? I don't remember. I heard that somewhere once
I think that's
before.
right. Yes.
Something like that. Some like regional mega breweries.
This is the famous Budweiser beer. So I mean, they're just not even. They're just like, yep, we're the king. Whatever, eat it.
Yeah.
Right. We know of no other brand produced by any other brewer which costs so much to brew and age. Our exclusive Beechwood aging processes a taste, a smoothness, and a drinkability you will find in no other beer at any price.
That is accurate.
We're the king. Shut the hell up.
That's right. Drink your beer.
Drink your beer, you drunk
Or
bastard.
one or two more, too.
Well, but here's the thing. They have been around forever.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
I had a roommate that just downed these. Like this was water to him. I mean,
I know some of those guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jenny's uncle, only thing he drinks. I've tried to bring him other beers.
Yeah.
Nope. It's straight diesel.
I had an uncle that was that way, too. Like, he'd show up, it was going to be some Budweisers going down.
Yep. Give him credit. I mean, we go to bars and he's like diesel, and they bring him Budweiser. That's it. I mean, that's what he does. That's who he is.
So, looking at this label again, one of the things that pops out to me, and this would have been a great thing to research, which I did not research.
Okay.
It reminds me of bicycle playing cards.
Yeah.
The font,
The AB right
the
in the middle
AB,
there. Yes.
the lines, the color, like that's what it reminds me of. So, for future reference, maybe we'll do that somehow. But what I did, because I wanted to be like, all right, Beechwood, what's the process? So I did it. I did a little
Fantastic.
research.
Good.
So we're going to talk about it. No, it's not.
Okay.
They make it sound like it's some amazing, thing that they do.
Yeah.
It's not really that exciting. It is,
Okay.
but it's not like anybody else couldn't do it too. It's not some secret alchemy or anything like that. So basically, here's what it is. So I'm
Okay.
going to distill it down. Distill it down so that we can understand, because a lot of it was science, and I don't do well with science. But let me read you my notes, and then I'll kind of summarize it if we need to. But it speeds up the lagering process, because lagers can take a while to make, right?
Okay.
And it finishes the beer quickly. So already that's an advantage for a brewery that's selling to make money,
Of
right?
course.
Like pump it out as fast as possible.
Yep.
Let's see. This process is designed to increase contact area between the yeast and the beer, which is what you want, right?
Okay.
So what they do is they take these long chunks or strips of beechwood, and they treat it by putting baking soda on it. They rub dunk it in a tank of baking soda or whatever. They put it on there
Okay.
because that eliminates any flavor from the wood itself. They don't want to impart any flavor from this process.
Okay.
And then they just stack it in the tanks. There seemed to be a method to the madness. It looked like they weren't just shoveling it in.
Okay.
They kind of like hand stacked it in there.
Okay.
Then what they do is they add fresh wort to these tanks, which is called Krausen, Krusen.
Very
That's
German.
the process.
Yeah.
Has the umlaut above the U. And the yeast sticks to the wood instead of forming like a layer at the bottom of the tank. So normally what you'd see is it's in there, and then it goes down to the bottom and then kind of like silt, right?
Right.
Well, with these pieces of wood in there, the yeast is like, hey, cool, something to hang out on. Almost like a fish habitat, like in the lake.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, there's sticks and things here. We're going to hang out in this area. We got protection.
Yep.
Well, that's what the yeast does. And because of that, it has more contact with the beer itself, the liquid, because it's not just at the bottom. It's all over in the tank. And it speeds up the process. So it does take time because like a normal beer, like you brew a beer and you're done, right? Well, they're brewing a beer and then they're like, oh, hold on. Put all this wood in here. Put in some more wort. And that's the, like, where they're talking about it ages, the beechwood aging.
Yeah.
Because they have to let it sit in there for a little while. So it's like an extra step that they use. Eventually, it does help speed up the process.
Right.
But you do have to do the work itself.
Sure.
But that's, in a nutshell, what it is. So nobody else is doing that. I don't know how they figured that out. But I guess it makes sense when you think about just putting stuff in there to have the yeast adhere to.
Have you done the tour in St. Louis?
No, never been.
So I've done it 3 times. There in pre-COVID days, we would go maybe once a year. We would have we as part of Atlas, we would go take our travelers out. We had a ton of travelers in St. Louis. We still do. And one of the things is because it's a good hour-ish tour, tons of history, and then afterwards you get 2 free beers and you get to sit in the tap room and whatever else. I mean, it's a lot of fun. But you actually get to hold a piece of beechwood.
Okay.
When you get to that point. And it's interesting how it's almost like a movie in a lot of ways. When you get to that point and they give you the piece of beechwood, it's cold in there, like it's really cold, it's refrigerated, and it goes on forever. There are just tanks for as long as you can see.
Yeah.
And they're just loaded with beechwood and beer. And they tell you about the process. Like you get to hold it, you get to smell it, you get to like the whole thing. And they're like planks. They're like long planks.
Do they reuse it?
I don't know. I assume during the tour they told us, but I don't recall.
It was
that
a beer
part.
tour.
It was a beer tour,
know.
yeah. And that's the thing. Multiple times, regardless of how I feel, right before that stop, you have a stop where you can try the beer right out of the tank or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's delicious. It's like
Way different than this?
Yes.
Is it warm?
No.
Oh,
No,
it's
it's
cold.
cold
Okay.
and refreshing and awesome, and it changed my mind for sure there.
So when I was doing this research, I was reading this article, and they were basically saying, here's how they do it. Should you do it at home when you're home brewing?
Okay.
Is this the best way to make a lager? Mm-hmm. And they broke it down like how you could do it at home. And the consensus was, no, don't do this. You don't need to. It's kind of for nothing. It imparts no flavor. It doesn't save you that much time, the end process. It's more effort than it's worth. You can make a good lager without it.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that's because at a homebrew level, we're talking 5 gallons maybe, or 10 on a double batch.
Sure.
Versus
I was gonna
millions
say-
of gallons. I don't know, but the consensus was if you're just going to make a lager, you don't need to do this process. But maybe that's why it stands out. I don't know.
Maybe.
Because people aren't doing that extra step. I found a little article before I came here today. So this is hot off the press.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out one more little thing to talk about before the meat of the research. So this was a thing that the Association of National Advertisers did in 2019. This was kind of in the height of Me Too movement.
Okay.
Right? So this advertisers kind of group decided they wanted to do something to raise awareness, and they called it See Her. So the See Her campaign.
Okay.
And what they did, specifically this company, Vayner Media Agency, they took...
You know who this is?
Who?
Gary V.
Gary V.
There
Gary
you go.
Vaynerchuk, yeah.
They took old print ads from Budweiser
Okay.
and reimagined them 50 years later. So I saw 3 images. One of them was a woman who was just married. She's in a wedding dress. And there's a Budweiser beer in it, and it says something like, you've married 2 men, right? You've married the man, and then you've married the inner man, and he loves Budweiser. What are you going to do about it? Basically something like that.
Sure.
The second one I saw was a man. He's working on, looks like a clock or something. He's taking it apart. He's got a hammer. He's sweating a little. He's working hard, and his wife's bringing him a nice tall Pilsner glass of Budweiser.
Delicious Budweiser.
And then the third one was a man who's obviously just got off work, and he's come into the kitchen, and he's lifting the lid on the pot, and he's taking a whiff, and his wife's got a beer on a tray for him.
Ah.
These are late 50s, early 60s.
Sure.
You'd see them in any magazine.
Yep.
Basically selling beer. So what they did was they flipped the script. They took the same basic images, and they switched them up. So the one with the guy opening the pot of soup or whatever ends up being a woman who's come home from work, and she's got like Chinese takeout, and she's all alone, and she's got a Budweiser in her hand. It's like, it's been a long day, treat myself, right?
Ah.
Second one, it was the guy with the hammer working on something. Their reimagined version was these people have obviously just been moved into a house, so they're pretty tired. They're both husband and wife sitting on the floor. There's a pizza. There's some Budweiser, and the tools are on her side, so they're sitting next to her. So she's in charge of whatever they were doing.
Yep.
And then the third one, the woman in the wedding dress, it was still a woman, but she was not in a wedding dress, but it was like girls' night instead of like a wedding reception or whatever. It was like, I'm out on the town. Mm-hmm. Me and my girls are here to have some brews. So those ran. There were 3 women that ran the campaign, so it was all strictly female run, and that was recent, like within a couple years ago. So that was just my most recent little information that I had on that.
So I credit this with being my introduction to Gary V. It's the commercial that they did after the Cubs won the World Series in 2016. So Budweiser hired them. It ended up winning commercial of the year, like whatever they call it. It's the Webby Award for best commercial of the year. It's the reason why I saw it the first time. It was shared through some Cubs groups on Facebook, but then because I watched it, then I got hit with some targeted ads from Gary V or whatever, and the one that kind of introduced the one about that I kind of clung to, him talking about doing random acts of kindness and understanding your customer and that type of thing, but what Budweiser did, what Budweiser tasked them with doing is saying, okay, if the Cubs win the World Series, we need you to use Harry Caray's voice announcing that the Cubs won the World Series. So they did it was probably 2 minutes, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like the first time, it's like you got tears. Like it was legit. Like it was real. Like it was Harry calling the end of the game.
Yeah.
And even still to this day, like it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like that was it. Like this is what's on WGN. Like this was a real thing, and they did a fantastic job. So I credit that with being the reason why I found Gary V in the first place.
Cool.
Yeah,
that was a thing that I had thought about. Was like when I was trying to figure out my main research, because I knew you were going to have some history stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to go more recent history.
Okay.
So I was thinking, okay, when I think about Budweiser, what comes into my mind? The first thing was Harry Caray.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's baseball centric. I don't want to maybe do that. What's something else? And that's what we're going at right now.
Awesome.
So we're going to go recent history, and then we'll have you give us the older history.
The way back history.
So this is late 80s, early 90s research.
Okay.
And we're going to learn about Spuds MacKenzie. Because that's, when I was a kid, 11 years old, that thing was everywhere. He was everywhere. Spuds MacKenzie.
This is Dolan's homework assignment right now. Find the old Spuds MacKenzie song.
Well, there's a super party animal. His name is
Spuds MacKenzie. True or false? I'm not even going to quiz you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to drop this on you. Was a girl.
Spuds MacKenzie was a girl.
She
Yes.
was a girl. And her name was Honey Tree Evil Eye.
No.
Yes. And her owners called her Evie for short. She lived in Chicago. So a good, Cubs tie-in maybe.
Well, there you go. Did she live with the Careys, maybe?
I don't think so.
No.
This was the ad campaign retired in 1989. So we're talking a 3-year window, maybe at most. There was a study that was done, like a survey, and Spuds MacKenzie was one of the top 10 most famous people in the world in 1988.
Yes.
Like, people don't really understand how popular Spuds MacKenzie was.
Off the charts.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Everywhere. Like, there's not really anything to compare it to as far as advertising nowadays that I can think of. Because here's why. Spuds MacKenzie was on David Letterman and got interviewed by David Letterman, right? There's 200 officially licensed products featuring Spuds MacKenzie. There were stuffed animals, there were swimming trunks, there was koozies, there was posters, there was shirts, there was everything. 200 pieces. That's a lot for a 2-year period, right? As any good discovery goes, they were found by a modeling scout. This dog was bred to be a show dog, and in Chicago, they did the rounds of the dog shows, and never placed, never won anything.
Really?
And they credit it because it had the spot on the eye. But that's exactly the reason where this scout, this advertising scout, was like, hey, that's pretty memorable. We're doing this poster here in Chicago for Budweiser, and we think your dog would be a good subject.
Right.
So they put Spuds, at that point, Evie, into a fraternity sweatshirt. It's got Greek emblems on it.
Yes.
And there's like a big, what would you call it? Almost like the Stanley Cup, a chalice of beer. And it's got like the ivy things on its side of its head.
On the head, yes.
And they sell it. And it's like the second most popular poster of the year. Because in the 80s, you had a poster in your room.
Yeah.
Like my friend, we had that poster. My friend had that poster in his room. Daryl, I think it was his.
Yeah.
It was probably his brother's because he was older. But we had that in our house when we all moved in together when I was 21. We had a Spuds MacKenzie poster on the wall 25 years after Spuds MacKenzie.
What was the number one poster? Alyssa Milano in the...
Kathy Ireland.
Now...
I think I wrote it.
For real?
Yeah, I think it was Kathy Ireland.
To me, it was Alyssa Milano in the New Jersey Devils hockey
Milano,
jersey.
pretty good,
Oh,
yeah.
Boy.
This dog, Spuds, Evie, was very cat-like. So this dog liked to sit on your lap. It was very chill, very low-key, didn't bark, wasn't aggressive. It was like some sort of terrier, pit bull terrier or something like that.
Yeah.
And in the article I read, it said it loved to eat Raisin Chex. So like Raisin Bran. So it was this treat. Give it to the dog and it would do whatever you want, like a Scooby snack. The first time it was in a commercial was in Super Bowl 21, which would have been 88, I think. Okay. Bengals and 49ers.
Oh, wow.
And then it was on that poster before that. So the poster did so well, they're like, let's put this dog in actual TV commercial when you can have TV commercials for beer.
Sure.
Robin Leach did the voiceover.
I remember
So
this.
Lifetimes of the Rich and Famous,
Yes.
I read a bunch of, like probably 3 or 4 articles about Spuds and advertising and stuff like that. They said one of the reasons it worked was because they never referenced Spuds as being a dog. It was always supposed to be a person.
Yeah.
So there would be like these scantily clad
The girls
bikini
loved
girls.
him.
They were called the Spudettes. And everybody just assumed that it was a person, except for us who were watching it. And they're like, well, that's obviously a dog. He's
clearly
a
a
party
dog.
animal.
Right.
But yeah, to everybody in the universe, whatever, it's a person. It's a guy. So that's why they think it works so well.
All right.
Here's why it's this is pretty kind of blew my mind when I read this stat. Bud Light hadn't been around that long, maybe 6 or 7 years at that point. Mm-hmm. Their sales went up 20% in 87 to 88 because of these Spuds MacKenzie ads and commercials. Wow. That's a lot. Oh. His title was Senior Party Consultant, which I want on my email at Atlas. That's what I want my title to be.
That's fine with me.
He also had this nickname. We'll see if you remember this one. The Ayatollah of Partyola. I mean, that's 80s right there.
Once again, why do other countries hate us?
Yeah, Spuds MacKenzie.
Right there.
He threw out the first pitch in the NCLS.
No, he did
Yeah,
not.
in 1988. Yeah.
Oh, for crying
the Dodgers.
out loud.
Yeah, he threw out the first pitch.
Wait. Is this the Kirk Gibson?
Yeah, that year.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it was that
goodness.
series to get him to the
Yeah,
World
yeah.
Series. But yeah, he
Yeah.
threw out the first pitch.
Oh my goodness.
This, I hardly believe this, but it says it's true. Get the music cue ready.
Okay.
That's a note for Dolan.
Okay.
Sir Mix-a-Lot
Oh no.
wrote Baby Got Back
No.
about the Spudettes.
No.
Because of the commercial they were in, one of the girls had nice booty because they were in like tight,
Sure.
like workout clothes,
Oh,
like
yeah.
80s, like jazzercise stuff.
Yep.
He's like, dang. Wrote the song. It's about the Spudettes.
Yep.
Baby Got Back. And then, sadly, Evil Eye, Honey Tree Evil Eye, Evie Spuds MacKenzie, passed away at 10 years old in 1993. Fittingly, probably, for a beer spokesman, of liver and kidney failure.
Oh no.
So, not sure if she drank a lot of beer, but had some ailments that some folks do have.
And that was the
enjoy
end of
Budweisers.
that was the end of Spuds MacKenzie.
Until 2017.
What?
Super Bowl 51. Guess what? The ghost of Spuds MacKenzie came back in an ad. Was all ghost looking.
Yeah.
It was kind of like around the same time that maybe that other Ghostbusters movie came out.
Oh, the girl one,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And there's a guy that was there, and the ghost of Spuds kind of came out. Almost looked like Frankenweenie.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was the same kind of dog with a spot.
Yep.
And he showed up in a Budweiser commercial in 2017. So that was the last appearance of Spuds.
Was that when they did like kind of the remix and they got the what's that guys and whatever
the frogs and all that.
Frogs
Yeah.
and
Was
that
that
you like that? That was actually pretty good, wasn't it?
That was good.
It was pretty good.
that was? I feel like you've done that a couple of times.
Maybe a few times.
So Budweiser. There you go. My dad had back in the day floppy hats. They were a thing.
Yes.
Man, everybody had a floppy hat.
Yes.
Well, he had a Budweiser one that had the frogs on it. And he would wear that one every once in a while, the Budweiser frogs. And that was one of his. You saw him out with that on. It was going to be a good day.
You could do that. There's a whole story behind that too, right? I mean, that was kind of their next big advertising campaign after Spuds.
It was kind of like viral before there was such a term as viral.
Yes.
I mean, there was T-shirts and
All kinds of it. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, there was a lot of different directions to go. I thought about Clydesdale stuff and all that, but I wanted to go Spuds because I wasn't sure where you were going to be.
That's a fun sort of juxtaposition to the actual, like to the real history, because that's it. I mean, besides that, and then I mean, the advertising behind Budweiser from the '80s to now is genius. Like what they've done to maintain their market share has been awesome.
Yeah.
From someone who absolutely appreciates the marketing aspect of it and the relevancy to stay relevant through all of this as craft beer has exploded, then they've done their work, right? And I'm sure they pay a lot of money for it, but at the same time, they are still very, very relevant. I mean, Budweiser and Bud Light are still absolutely relevant. I had a whole page worth of sponsorship, and that was it. They sponsor everything and anything.
Oh, I bet.
And it was.
I remember they have a NASCAR for a long time. I remember.
It's MLB, NHL. It's the Big Five, right?
Yeah.
It's soccer, hockey, football, baseball. It's huge, and basketball. It's huge. They are the number one sponsor in every one of those, either through Budweiser, Bud Light, Busch Light, whatever. Like any of their brands, they are the number one sponsor in each one of those categories.
Dang.
To stay relevant, and why not?
I wonder how they decide which brands of theirs to push, right? So it's like, this is the flagship, obviously.
Right.
Budweiser.
Right.
Now, this isn't not something I normally have, right? But I'm aware of it. I've had it before.
Yep.
But they have so many other under their umbrella names and breweries, quote unquote, or whatever, product lines.
Yep.
It's like, I wonder how they allocate the funds and where do they decide where do we need to pump it up, push it back. That would be
Maybe
interesting to figure that out.
Sales. I mean, they probably just look at the
Because they own what? Michelob, right? That's
Yep.
one of theirs. Natural Light.
Natural Light. Yep.
So any of those natty days, that's
Kona.
them.
They own Kona Brewing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Goose
I wonder how
Island. Do they own?
They own
they
Goose.
might.
Yeah.
They own a lot. So I wonder
Yeah.
how they figure out their advertising, but that'd be interesting to know.
I will guarantee it's 100% driven by research, by market research. They are as smart as Apple or Amazon or like any of those
Yeah.
big companies. Like nothing they do is by accident.
For sure.
Nothing they do is a guess. Everything is driven by data for them. And that was honestly it was interesting for me. I'm like, okay, but that's not something for us to talk about. I mean, that's if you're okay. So if we're doing strictly a marketing podcast about
Sure, yeah.
or whatever, this is the data that you would want. Like this is what you would want to
Or
understand.
you might want to know that 25 years after Spuds' death, he's still worth $1 million.
right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just that's unbelievable. Unbelievable. But we all know it. We all know who Spuds MacKenzie is. You say Spuds MacKenzie, and the song plays in my head. It was so influential at that time, and it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Who would be like a famous dog of today? I can only think of two.
A famous dog.
Well, I mean,
Outside of Scooby Doo,
yeah,
right?
not
I mean,
Around since
Scooby-Doo, yeah.
69.
right?
I don't even know. Like in my head, the Raising Cane's dog comes to mind, but that's.
Sure.
I mean, he's not like on TV or anything.
But if you don't have a Raising Cane's, you wouldn't know.
Right, exactly.
I mean, he's mom famous. My mom would know Spuds MacKenzie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
She ain't going to know the dog
Yeah.
from Raising Cane's.
Or there's the new dog that's sponsored by Wendy's. He's huge on TikTok.
Oh.
Pudgy. He's the Awa Awa dog.
I don't know what that means.
No, I didn't know.
He's gaining a lot of traction.
Wow.
Yeah. The highest paid dog on TikTok, I think.
That is a sentence I never thought I'd hear.
Yeah.
No, not one bit.
No.
Well, there's a super party animal. His name is Buds MacKenzie. With a beach in sight and a cold Bud Light, he's in the party frenzy.
He's Spuds MacKenzie, one party-loving, happening dude.
Two sections to my research. One, we
Okay.
have to understand who Anheuser-Busch is now.
Okay.
Okay, before we get into where they came from. So, Anheuser-Busch is part of InBev, an American brewing company headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, with a stupid baseball team
Yeah.
and other stupid stuff, right?
Yes.
Fantastic city, awesome baseball field, stupid baseball. Okay? InBev is a brewing company that resulted in a merger between Belgium-based Interbrew and Brazilian brewer Ambev, which took place in 2004. So I remember when this went down. So
it's Belgian and Brazil.
and Brazilian.
But it's headquartered in... Okay.
Okay, but it got there.
All right.
And I'll get you there. Here's how we get there. It existed independently until the acquisition of Anheuser-Busch in 2008. So 4 years after they merge, they go buy the giant, right? So they've got Brazilian money and they've got Belgian money, right?
Dang.
So, and then they've got enough, they buy Anheuser-Busch, right? But that forms Anheuser-Busch InBev. So they maintain the Anheuser-Busch name. They maintain all of that.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if, like, they needed. It's weird. They needed legitimacy, maybe, to create that brand. So they just assumed the Anheuser-Busch name.
Okay.
And so now they are synonymous with Budweiser.
Well, you hear InBev more than you hear Anheuser-Busch.
Anheuser-Busch,
Yeah.
right. So now abbreviated AB InBev, and then abbreviated down to just InBev. So InBev has operations over 30 countries, sales in over 130 countries. So they've got distribution to 130 different countries.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable how big they are. The original Anheuser-Busch InBev was formed through those 3 mergers of those 3 companies. And then since 2008, Anheuser-Busch has been a division of Anheuser-Busch InBev SA.NV, which is all of it together.
Okay.
Right? So every bit of it together, which is the world's largest brewing company. Budweiser is available in 80 countries. Not always through the Budweiser name, though. So, but it's through the Anheuser-Busch trademark. And we'll get to that a little bit. It's funny because we've talked about this. There's a Budweiser Budvar that's available in Austria and Germany that existed first. That has like that trademark or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So they produce their own Budweiser beer first, and so they maintain that over the Giant. Like they maintain that name over the Giant.
it was
So
first.
there, it's just called Bud,
Bud.
just Bud. Budweiser is a filtered beer made with up to 30% rice added to the hops and barley used to make it as a lager. So 30% rice in here as opposed to maybe other beers that we've had where there's no rice.
None, yeah.
Right? Or in episodes like last week where there was corn involved. So how did it all start? Like where did it come from? Who was the founder? Right? That's always the story. And this is kind of where it hit me like, oh man, like there's something from a history standpoint, and you could call Adolphus Busch like the father of American beer or whatever, but it all started with this guy named Eberhard Anheuser. Eberhard, Eberhard, Eberhard.
Okay.
But Eberhard Anheuser, born September 27th, 1806, was a German-American soap and candle maker. So he made a ton of money selling soaps and candles in St. Louis. Like that
Weird.
was his thing. But he liked beer too,
I mean, as you do.
right? So he also liked wine, which is kind of fun. And wine kind of has a weird sort of vein through all of this, which is fun. So Eberhard grew up in Kreuznach, 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 where his parents operated a vineyard
As in Germany, right?
in Germany,
Okay.
yes. Ever since 1627. So his family owned a vineyard from 1627 up until the point where he immigrated to the United States.
Dang. So almost 200 years.
Yeah. He and 2 of his brothers moved to North America in 1842. He was the major creditor of the Bavarian Brewery Company, which was a struggling brewery founded in 1853 in St. Louis.
Okay.
When the company encountered financial difficulty in 1860, he purchased the minor creditor's interests and then took over the company.
So that's Civil War, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Eberhard became the president and CEO and changed the name of the company to Eberhard Anheuser and Company. His daughter Lily married Adolphus Busch. It's a name you all
we
should.
go.
Yep. Right. Here we go. So this is where the Busch family is introduced to the business. A brewery supply salesman. So the dude is selling to this guy, marries his daughter in a double wedding with Anna Anheuser, Lily's older sister, and Ulrich Busch, Adolphus's brother.
Oh, I'm sure it was just an accident that happened.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right? In 1861, despite the Civil War, the brewery remained competitive because lager was not banned by the Union Army, but hard liquors were.
Well, you get messed up on whiskey, but not
Yeah.
Budweiser.
Here's the crazy fun part about this. Missouri and Kansas were introduced to the Union at the same time,
Yep.
right? Kansas was the Union state. Missouri was the
Confederate,
Confederate
yeah.
state. But they were selling lager to the Union Army at the time,
Missouri. St.
Missouri.
Louis. Okay.
right? As Anheuser became older,
Interesting.
Adolphus Busch took over. As of course, I mean, he got in good with the family or whatever, and he took over most of the company's duties. In 1879, he renamed the company Anheuser-Busch. So he's like, you know what?
Good idea.
I'm the man now. and he took over. And as I did research on this guy, it makes a whole lot of sense. So he served in the Union Army, even though he was in Missouri, and he served in the Union Army. To build Budweiser as a national brand, he created rail-side ice houses and launched the industry's first fleet of refrigerated rail cars.
In the 1860s,
Wow.
70s?
Yes, 1870s. Yes.
That's forward thinking.
Now,
Yeah.
this is awesome. He jokingly referred to his beer as Budweiser as Dot Schlop. He did not like it. He preferred to drink wine. He was a wine drinker through and through.
Huh.
Did not like beer. Now,
Like, this is for peasants. Give me the wine.
meanwhile, drink as much of my beer as
Yes.
please buy
Huh.
more of it. He implemented pasteurization in 1878 as a way to keep beer fresh. He was the first brewery to implement pasteurization, and that enabled the company to ship it in their refrigerated rail cars all across the country. So he had distribution in 1878 all across the country
That's crazy.
already. He was, so from a business standpoint, this is probably my most favorite part. He was a big believer in vertical integration. So if you understand business, vertical integration is buying every piece of that supply chain. So you own all, right? So it cuts down on your cost. Mm-hmm. So he bought bottling factories. He bought ice making plants. He bought timberland, coal mines, refrigeration companies. He bought railways. He bought a diesel company. He understood every part of that process, and he bought every part of that vertical to cut down on costs, to save them money.
Wow.
So did they ever get into any sort of like government problems with like monopoly?
Well, like a monopoly or whatever? I don't know if we were quite to that point yet.
Okay.
Like if it really got to the, with oil and everything else. Or did they even care about
that was
beer at
before,
that point?
at that point. Back
Right.
then,
Did they even
kind
care?
of pro that stuff. Just money is money.
A dude ahead of his time. He also, this was the last bit of what he did. He bought hop farms up around Cooperstown, New York.
I was going to ask.
All the way through, from the hops to the delivery,
Was all,
Fuel for the...
he owned it.
Yeah, wow.
Right?
I mean, he's just paying himself
Right.
over and over.
Yes.
So smart.
Yeah.
Amazingly smart.
Dude, if that guy doesn't run this company, that we're probably not drinking this beer.
No. Right.
'Cause that's, 150 years ago.
And he married in. I mean,
He married in.
he married in.
Good work.
I have a feeling he might have been finagling that marriage.
Look, with the basic history here of all the rest of this, hell yes, he worked that
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Wow.
He died in 1913 from dropsy. You know what dropsy is?
I think that's when you drop your beer. You're
Dot
sad about it.
That is close. It's not Dot Schlop either. No.
Oh,
Known as edema, fluid retention.
oh, too much
died.
wine in his body.
Yeah, way too much. So, almost 30,000 people paid their respects at his funeral when he laid in state there in St. Louis. Notable guests include the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, the president of Harvard University, the president of the University of California. The procession consisted of 25 trucks that were needed to transport all the flower arrangements to the cemetery. 25 trucks for just the flowers.
People love beer.
Were they
Right?
refrigerated?
Probably his own fleet.
Right.
So what's up with the California connection?
I don't know. That was
Harvard-
weird.
Maybe did he have a little
Wine?
winery or
Yeah,
vineyard
maybe.
out there?
But what about Harvard? I mean, that's
Business school, maybe. I don't know.
guess.
I mean,
don't
he's
know.
he's training people to come work for him.
There was a 250-piece band that led the funeral procession. The procession spanned 20 miles long from
Wow.
number 1 Bush Place to Belafonte Cemetery, where he was buried.
Dude, some presidents don't get that.
No.
No.
Well, yeah, beer is more important anyway.
As many as 100,000 mourners lined the streets for the procession. 5 minutes of silence were observed at the request of Mayor Henry Keele and the lights were turned off at the Jefferson and Planters House hotels. Streetcars were also halted.
I mean, you're lucky to get a minute of silence nowadays. 5
Yeah.
minutes.
5
Dang.
minutes.
Wow.
Lily Anheuser, the wife of Adolphus Busch, her parents built a mausoleum there at Belafonte Cemetery in St. Louis. She didn't think it was enough, so she had it torn down.
Oh, boy.
And they built something way bigger. In 1921, it cost $250,000, equivalent to $2.8 million today.
I was going to
For
say
a
that's
dead
a
body.
million.
Huge. Wow. It featured grapevines representing both
Yep.
Adolphus's birthplace in Germany and his favorite beverage. And then over the top of his grave were Julius Caesar's words, Veni, Vendi,
Vici?
Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered.
Now
Man.
it's a brewery.
Badass.
That one funeral alone, like, funded probably 50% of all the growing,
Yeah.
yes.
like, dead body industry.
Oh, my gosh. Dug it up.
Funeral
So they paid for it
industry.
once, dug it up,
Yep.
broke it down, and built another one.
That's crazy.
He's, I mean, just such a, we don't, and maybe it's because maybe it's St. Louis. I don't know. Would it have been different if he was in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago? I don't know. But just from a giant in American history,
Yeah.
this dude is right up there.
Wow.
And
Yeah, nobody knows about it.
no,
Interesting.
no,
Because what's more American than lager beer?
Budweiser, man. I mean,
Budweiser.
it's just, yeah. It has all of this, like every time we do this, it changes my mind.
Yeah. I
About-
bet you there's a biography about this guy. It'd probably be good to read.
Oh, I bet it's awesome.
They
Like I
probably
said,
sell it at the store at the brewery.
oh, maybe. It was overwhelming the amount of history involved. When you do the tour, it's city blocks worth of buildings.
Wow.
And during Prohibition, like there's a whole section about here's what we did during Prohibition. We made medicine, and we made pop, and we made soda water. And,
I was going to say, didn't they do water?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't water?
A lot of, some
Yep.
breweries did that, yeah.
Yeah.
you walk by the school. So during after Prohibition, they had a school. So for all the employees, they had an elementary school where all the employees' kids went to school.
Nice.
And it's a huge place. Like it's a
I bet.
giant building.
It's probably one of the, at least then, it was one of the big employers of the town, I bet.
I wrote down other just interesting facts about Anheuser-Busch.
Okay.
2008, Anheuser-Busch had a market share. So total Anheuser-Busch, 2008 had a market share of 50.9%. They owned over half the market.
Wow.
In 2008.
For beer?
For all beer sold. Budweiser brands account for half of Anheuser-Busch's sales volume, but that figure has steadily been declining by 1.5% to 2% per year.
Because of craft beer.
Absolutely.
But I almost would think it would be more than that. I mean, that's billions of dollars at
Yes.
50%, but
Are they adding seltzers into that now?
I would assume
I would
are
assume
now.
they probably are.
'Cause that's probably
yeah.
the biggest
Huge.
reason.
They're probably back up. They
Yeah.
probably gained market share in
Yeah.
the
Yes.
last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anheuser-Busch employs over, InBev, Anheuser-Busch, employs over 30,000 people worldwide, operates 12 breweries in the United States, and until December 2009 was one of the largest theme park operators in the United States.
What, Busch Gardens?
Busch Gardens, yeah.
Oh.
Obviously, Disney has gotten bigger than that now.
I've never
so-
been to Busch Gardens, have you?
Yeah, I have. It's fun. It's very animal-themed,
Oh,
but a lot of fun.
okay.
Finally, in the European Union, excluding the Republic of Ireland, Sweden, Finland, and Spain, the American beer is marketed as Bud. It's just called
Nice.
Bud. As the Budweiser trademark name is owned by the Czech beer maker Budweiser Budvar, who we've talked about before. In some countries, Budvar and Anheuser-Busch are available under the Budweiser name. So they just say, whatever, here you go. One and the same. So
Interesting. Wow.
that is the abbreviated history of which got me super excited, more so than I
To
thought.
drink the beer, huh?
It
So what do we think of
almost-
this beer?
It almost tastes better now that I understand the history.
If I'm going to drink a domestic beer, which doesn't happen very often, but if I'm going to, back in the day, I was at a wedding or baseball game or something. Maybe I'm going with this one. Usually, if it's there, I'll have this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd go more. A little foreshadowing here. I think I'd go more Coors Banquet. But
There's a lot more sweetness there.
as much as I'm having a hard time finishing this one, to be honest. But I can crush Busch Lights all day. You know. So
Different kind of beer.
Busch
though.
Light gives me headaches. I can't have that one.
I love it. I mean, on the boat, it's the perfect beer.
Here's a fun segue for you. And I wrote down on here, look at Brian's check-ins for Untapped.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to look at Brian's check-ins on
Oh,
Untapped
boy.
before we do the actual Untapped.
If I checked into Budweiser, I guarantee you it was like at an event or a location or something.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so first one, August 7th, 2018, Werner Park.
Okay.
Yep, that was you know what? I know exactly when that was. I was working here.
Yep.
And it was super hot that day, and I took the day off, and I went to the Storm Chasers game, and I sat right behind home plate, and I had a tall boy 24-ounce can.
I can see the on-deck circle in
Is there
your
a picture?
You're
Yep.
holding up the tall boy,
Uh-huh.
and I can see somebody. I can see somebody in the on-deck circle.
See?
3.75. Here we go.
Yep.
Another one. It's called from a place called One More Bar.
Yep.
Must
that's
have
in
been a
Lincoln.
concert,
Yeah, it was
maybe?
pre-concert, yeah. Pre-gamed.
2018. You gave it a 3.25.
Yep.
Let's see. Keep going back. Horizon Level is September 17th, 2017. You gave it a 5.
Horizon level.
Horizon Level. No idea.
No idea.
This is my favorite one out of all of them.
Uh-oh.
Because I can see you're wearing your KC gear.
That's at Wrigley.
That's at Wrigley Field.
That's at Wrigley.
And you gave it a 5. And
Yep.
your comment is Wrigley Field.
Yep. It was cold. That was 34 degrees that day. That game. That's the only time I've ever been to Wrigley.
Yeah.
And it was Royals versus Cubs. And Jorge Soler for the Cubs
For the Cubs.
hit a walk-off homer in like the 11th inning. It was 3-2.
My brother was at that same game.
Really?
And he said it was miserable.
Oh, it sucked. It was so cold.
Oh.
My hands were numb. All I had was that Royals little like light weather jacket. It wasn't supposed to be that cold, and it was.
Couple
Oh, God.
Budweisers to keep you warm.
Oh.
I
It
guess.
was more than a couple.
And then finally, 2012, July 15th, 2012, you checked it in at Hidden Valley Golf Course.
Golf course. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
hot, sloppy mess.
At a 4.25. So
Sounds right.
Yeah. Okay, so then just general Untapped.
Oh,
411,000 check-ins. Is that the
It's got to be the
most?
Yeah. There's
I
no,
don't
there's
even
no
know.
other beer
I
that
don't
would be
even
more than
know.
that.
I don't know. We'll find out next week, but I will see.
I don't know. I'm gonna go. I don't know. 3.
3.3 for you?
Yeah.
I'm going to say 3.48.
2.58.
2.5
Wow.
Yeah.
for Budweiser?
Yep.
I mean, I get it though. Because I feel like the people that I know that drink only Budweiser, they don't know what Untapped is.
It's not the market.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's kind of an old person's beer.
yeah.
At least everybody, when I was growing up, it was the older people that were drinking it. Yeah.
Jenny's uncle. It's my wife's uncle, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
my
his
uncle.
beer.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like my old roommate that I mentioned earlier. The reason he drank is because his dad and his uncle and his grandpa and
Yeah.
you know, they all drank it.
The history to it, right? I mean, it's just family after family after family. That's the beer that you drank.
Well, I mean, you could do worse, right?
Right.
I mean, it's drinkable, unless you're Dolan, but it is drinkable.
I'll finish his.
I will say I have to go back on what I said. I think the first, lager or beer that I would go for is PBR, and then maybe Bud Lime, and then probably Coors Banquet. Budweiser's probably it's not on my list.
Not on the list.
No.
Here's the thing. I show up at random neighbor's house, helping a dude move. Whatever. Hey, you want a beer? Sure. You hand me this? I'm not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, if you get the standard moving contract of beer and pizza,
Yep.
this is the beer. You're like, okay,
Drink it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I won't not drink it. That's
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I don't think there's a
Yep.
beer I haven't finished.
Yeah, me too. And I've had some spoiled beers. I've had infected beers. I've had, the 2015 Bourbon County. Had one of those the other day, my last bottle.
There's definitely beers where I'm glad I've just had a taster of it. Maybe like the when this is super foreshadowing, but we had a smoky beer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You'll hear about that in probably 3 or 4 weeks.
There's one coming up in a couple weeks. In fact, the last episode of Mainstream May, I am not a fan of. I don't think it's good. I would not. I probably will not finish it.
Oh.
But it is as mainstream as you can get.
Interesting.
Out there. So
all right.
What it's going to be.
So there you go. All right, fellas. We're not going anywhere for a while.
Let's have another mainstream beer.
Thank you for listening to A Beer with Atlas. Special thanks to our brand team for producing the show. Each episode of A Beer with Atlas is powered by Atlas MedStaff, an industry leader in travel healthcare staffing.